Okay, welcome back, everyone. The next speaker is Bennie Diedericks, who probably also doesn't need an introduction. I'm sure a lot of you are working with Bennie. I would actually call Bennie my mentor in a way, and I'm sure he is to a lot of you too. Bennie is a soil scientist by training, and is possibly the most out-of-the-box thinking person that I have the pleasure of knowing. But Bennie is here because he's been doing a lot of experimentation, or driving a lot of the experimentation with animal integration in Stellenbosch area and a few other areas. So we've asked him to be here today to share a bit more about integrating animals, different animals, what's working and what doesn't work. So thank you, Bennie.
Thank you, Emma. Good afternoon, everybody. Now I'm a bit on my nerves, but let's go and see where this takes us to. I must say I can only stand here because you allowed me to work with you on your farms and your systems, and we progress from there. The topic is what have I learned? So I'll start with patience and surprise. Willem will know about patience. My interest in what's now called regenerative agriculture started in the early 2000s when we saw what happened after we established a new vineyard on a field that was under grazing for 3 years. That was at Boschendal. Willem moved from Boschendal to Hartenberg. It took us 17 years to get animals into the vineyards on systems that we wanted to do. There was a lot of hurdles, and some we gave up sometimes, but just to pick it up again. The surprise part is how quickly we saw and measured differences once we've introduced animals into the system. Everybody said it's going to take years. We saw differences in especially soil biology within months. So be prepared to be surprised by nature and how it comes back and how it changes over time. Context. I think we saw this morning. This is not America. It's a song by David Bowie, but it's not Australia either, or France, or wherever. You must understand the context of your own farm. You must know where it is at, what's happening there, how things are working, and it's complex. And I think Bertie mentioned it more than once. Biological systems are complex. The next point there is regenerative agriculture is just a part of the ecological component if you're looking at holistic management. The holistic management principles, the ecology, the people, and the economy. So regenerative agriculture is only a section of the ecological management component of holistic management. That makes it even more difficult, and that's why certification and verification are two really important aspects. So decide on whether you're going to play by your own rules, that's guided by the system you've got and by your principles, or whether you're going to play according to rules, let's say, set by other people. And to me, regenerative agriculture gives us that freedom to opt for verification instead of certification. psychology, and now I'm on very thin ice. But I think we spend too little time thinking and talking about this. Bertie, I think you said, or Barbara van Wegmar, I also had the privilege to learn from her. And she said to me a long time ago, and at that time it didn't make sense. She said that the problems on our farm started when the animals were moved off. And show me a healthy ecological system without animals. It's not there. We have to bring it back. We have to have them in our system. And Tessa, was jy? This was your quote from from a week ago. Once you have animals, you can never not have animals. I think you must. Yeah, I don't need to say anything more. When I come onto a farm and Wilhelm and was David, almal, you know, they will tell you the first thing that people ask when they come to the tasting room is, "Wat maak die beeste in die wingerd? What's the animals doing? What's the cattle doing in the vineyards?" You know, it's the atmosphere changes, the curiosity that it invokes from your visitors. Yeah. And I think it was mentioned more than once this morning. Regenerative farmers are more creative in problem solving. This was a study that was done in Michigan in the States, although it was ranching, but you've got two systems. You've got vines that you plant and they stay very much put for the next 20 or 30 years. And then you've got animals and they've got to be moved. And you've got to start thinking about them and where they go and what to do next and how to feed them. So your management system is more complex. You need to think more creatively, and you need to be more aware of the ecology in which your farm is embedded, or which your farm forms part of. And we see that the people who embrace regenerative agriculture is also more aware of the entire ecology, and that's why most of them are biodiversity champions. And I will say something about that at the end as well. But Etienne started this morning, and he mentioned that for every hectare of vineyards, we've got a hectare of biodiversity sanctioned land. Compaction, and I don't know whether there's an English word like impaction, but it just rhymed for me. Compaction, or the perception that animals cause compaction, was one of the main drivers why it took so long for us to be able to introduce cattle into the vineyards. What you see on the slides there are the hoof marks of the cattle, but it serves as a collection point for organic matter, dead leaves, for seeds. Over here, this one, you can see it's medic seeds that germinates there. So if you manage the cattle correctly, if they're not walking onto bare soil, if there's always material under the hoof, then compaction is not a problem. But you have to manage it. So the hoof marks actually, as what we can see there, very beneficial in collecting organic matter. Now I'm at the animals. So not all cattle are equal. We've got the poster girls over here, and they not always that easy to handle. And the same goes for Ngoonies. They're effective, but they're not always easy to handle. So what can your system handle? How many laborers have you got? Are your laborers okay to work with animals? Bigger is not always better in that case. some people are very scared of cattle. So these poster girls are probably, yeah, seen in most regenerative articles that's written in South Africa. Then you've got Sussex, the cattle in the middle. They don't eat olive leaves, but Dexters, they do. So make sure what you're farming with, select a cattle breed that fits there. And lots have been said about Dexters, but they manage easily. They have good temperament. They fit our systems very well. But the important point is to farm with what you like. If you like Ngunis, go with them. There's no sense in working with animals that you don't like. Okay, I said Dexters are ideal. They're small. And what we found is that 10 cattle is for us a nice management unit. It's the amount of cattle that can be handled by one person. So well, if it's 8 or 12, that's more or less 10. So work with small units rather than with big herds. And I'm talking South Africa, the context over here that we've got. Bulls can be problematic. Either get one in for a small time or use artificial insemination, but really, especially if there's more than one bull on the farm, it's just moeilikheid. So cattle, and sorry, I didn't say in the beginning, but yeah, I haven't done much work with sheep due to all the reasons that's already been said this morning. So cattle are tools. Just like any other tool on your farm, they're there to do a job. And other than just working in the vineyards and bringing let's say that ecological component back there, they can be used for weed control. I will show you some slides there. Clearing of fire breaks. That's very expensive in South Africa in any case. But if you've got a herder, and Bertie mentioned the herding academy in Graafrenet, you can guide those cattle to clear the fire breaks for you. Veld rehabilitation, the same. Controlling reeds in rivers and water courses, they love it. And it's good food for them, and it's a very effective way of keeping the reeds under control. And then there's the tourist attraction component as well. We also see an increase in bird life. And I read an article last two days, and now I'm a bit, let's say, worried or even more concerned. The article is about the decrease in insect numbers across the world. Not necessarily related to pesticides, but more related to the climate change. And it would be interesting for me if you start monitoring bird life on your farm. What's the ratio of insect eaters to seed eaters? Whether we see a shift there. And if we see a shift there, that's mainly because of climate change, or as it seems now. Okay. Okay, kom ons. Then just on cover crop management, a few pointers there. So cover crops, once you've got animals, cover crop starts becoming a part of your fodder flow program for your animals. Which vineyards buds the first? Those are the blocks that you're going to sow first, so because those are the ones that the animals will be taken out the earliest. Keep your cover crop mix simple. There was a time when people opted for 12, 15 different species in the just to bring in biodiversity. Really, people, it doesn't work. After one season, you're stuck with 2 or 3. Get a cereal, get a nitrogen binder, and if you really want to be smart, you can add a brassica. But that's it. If you've got animals, you can play around, have a early and a late cereal, and that will also help. The same with the clovers and the medics. Our medics are late, the clovers are early. So combine those, but keep it simple. We've seen let's say an explosion of medics once you bring in the cattle. That hardiness of the medic seed is broken down by the cattle, and they just proliferate. So the animals are in our vineyards from now until bud break, and then it's out. And its impact grazing systems. We we can in most instances have 2 grazings per season. That's all that's allowed, because we do want to leave enough material at the end of the season so that we don't have bare soil. There must be enough material left to protect the soil throughout the summer. More or less 100 cow days per hectare is what we can manage during a season. So the area allocated depends on the growth of the stand, or the volume of the material, the food that's available, and the animals the amount of animals you have. Purists will want to move animals on a daily basis. It's just not practical always. Come into a rhythm, move them once or twice a week. Preferably twice, and as I said, the Mondays and Fridays are really practical times to move them, so that you don't need to move animals over the weekend. So allow enough food for them to graze and then to be moved. We also have an opportunity in the post-harvest period. Send the cattle in, clean up, so that you can plant your cover crop. And once again, that's a quick action, and do it after you've applied your post-harvest fertilizer, because the cattle will eat the leaves. So apply the fertilizer, give a month, 4 weeks, 5 weeks, so that nutrients can be taken up, stored in the vines, and then if you lose leaves, then it won't interfere with the reserve building of your vines. Some weeds. No, now my English is up. Koperdraad, turknaals. Those are really. Dankjewel, English. We see that weeds like koperdraad and turknaals are, sorry about that, I don't know the English for that, are preferred by cattle. They will leave medics to eat that. Some observation made by Wilhelm, for instance, gousplom, the cattle doesn't eat it until after flower. So that becomes sweet. The seeds need to be distributed. They eat it and the seeds get distributed. So something that we needed herbicides for are now eaten by the cattle. So what needed, so the whole perspective on weeds have changed, are changing in this systems. So how many animals can you keep on your farm? That's determined by the amount of summer grazing you've got. That will determine. We're not there yet, but we're hoping to get to a system where we can have rent a cow. So, At this stage, I don't know whether there should actually be money involved. The cows are doing a job for you on the farm, but also the owner of the cattle, his fields are resting. So it's a win-win situation, and I think there's opportunity there, and we will do it this season and on 1 or 2 farms that I work with. But I think it's something that we can look at. But ideally, you don't want to. You want your own cattle. They are trained to work in vineyards. They are comfortable within the system. If you get wild animals, it takes time for them to become accustomed to become calm and to be managed easily. Our critical period is autumn, when your summer grazing is just about done. The new cover crops are not big enough yet, so we must make provision for feed in that time. So look at once again at the whole system and what we can do to make sure that our animals have enough food. Soil, yeah. Ja.
So hoe kom ons weg met daai stukkie en hoe belangrik is daai post-harvest clean-up vir jou beeste om deur te gaan, want ons moet letterlik ons begin al bewerk terwyl hulle nog honger het.
Ja.
Of drywers.
Post-harvest cleanup, the question is whether post-harvest cleanup is so important. To me, that's a bonus. You know, if you can get that in, that's really a bonus. I wouldn't sacrifice my post-harvest fertilization because that's critical. If you go, we need that for the proper building of reserves. So yes, the post-harvest cleanup is a bonus. If you can do it twice during the season, that's great. Okay. So farming is an intervention into the whole ecosystem of the terroir. So we must remember that, and your cultivation will always That's the word that ek nou gebruik. Superimpose the crops requirements over that of the natural terroir. So in order to balance both those, that's our challenge. We've got to balance the ecology of the farm and the requirements of the crop. So we work with soil, and soil, chemical, physical, and biological component to it, and that you all know that. And for many years, the focus was on soil chemistry and soil physics, because those were the easiest things to measure. You can take an analysis, send it to the lab, and get some results back, and there are norms. Soil biology, it's not that easy. It's very diverse. It changes a lot and quickly over very little time. So in the last couple of years, soil biology has come to the fore, and now everybody, I think, is overemphasizing soil biology. Soil biology can only take its right place when the soil physics and the soil chemistry is in place. If you have a compacted soil, if you've got a waterlogged soil, you can do all you want with soil biology. You're not going to fix it. First fix the other stuff, then the biology will fix itself. There was that movie about the stadium that was built somewhere in a wheat field or a maize land in the States. Baseball, what was that? Okay, daar is hy. Julle weet van dit. build it and they will come. Fix the soil physics and the soil biology will be there. It's there. People carry on about earthworms, and earthworms are used as indicators by many people, but nobody has ever sold or bought earthworm eggs. Where do they come from? They're there. Create the conditions and the right biology will come back. And don't bring anything in from somewhere else. They can't outcompete the locals. Create the conditions and the soil health, if there's something like that, will return. Okay, a couple of photos. The big one, we've got Dexter's and Valhallum, and Valhallum is the one in the forefront. But look at the complexity of what we've got there. There's weeds, there's clovers, there's cereals. It's there. Biologically very complex or diverse, if I can call it that. That's photo just to say they really do eat the reeds. And the photo at the bottom is one of dung beetles. And you can see I think within a couple of days, nothing will be left of that. So if you walk, and I spoke to David as well. What's a miskoek in Engels? Cow patties, they're not there. You can't find them. They disappear so quickly because it gets worked into the soil. Okay. That's two systems. One at Rustenburg, one at Gabrielskloof. In this one here, the animals were used for weed control. That grass suppressed everything. I must say, after that, the cattle were put on decent pastures because that was not very nutritious, but they did the job. Within 3 weeks, the Ceradella that you can't see here was showing nice and green into the system. That is normal practice for us. We put the cattle in, we graze down more or less half, we move them on. Lots of material still left, and we've achieved what we want to. I'm nearly done. Just as I said, we see a proliferation of birds. This white egrets, guinea fowl. This is our indigenous chickens. So we see them follow the cattle. When you've got cover crops, they can't go in. It's too high. Once the cattle has been through, they follow the cattle. They scratch. They do a good job. The ducks. That's not. No, I haven't mentioned it, but it's part of a system on many of our farms. They do snail patrols, if you want to call it that. But the nice story on that is Avondale, who started with that practice many years ago. And what they got in new ducks every year, and which wasn't this Indian runner ducks, it was the small white ones. But after a couple of years, they had to stop because there were no more snails, or snails were not a problem anymore. But then the staff came to the management and say, you can't do that because the ducks are part of our Christmas bonus. So they had to get the ducks back, and now the ducks are doing a job in the neighbors' farms. So, yes, it works. It needs a bit of management, as do all of these other things. And then bees. People, we have to look after our bees, and if you're looking wider than just the vineyard, which we have to do. If we're looking at the ecology of the farm, make sure that you optimize your natural veld, or that you make moeite and establish other stuff, other crops that will supply food to the bees. A boer maak 'n plan. In English is a farmer makes a plan. I don't know whether your farmers are so planful as South Africans, but we do make a plan. This is in Traval area. It's raisins. It's on a table grape trellising system, but they need to establish a cover crop in the middle of the row. So we've got either the drip line here or the drip line op die kappe high up. If you actually get a very good water distribution just by the wind movement and the drippers. So they've just planted, and the animals will come in afterwards once the cover crop is. Because the area is so dry, we have to make, and you've got animals, then you have to make sure you've got feed for the animals. So you have to make a plan. And if you're going that direction, it's very easy to either take the dripper line from your vines if it's on the floor and put it in the middle of the row and wet that. Or when you establish your new vineyard, just put in a T-piece and a tap. And all of you have got old dripper lines. It doesn't need to be perfect, as long as it can serve a purpose to help you establish the cover crop. This is a very wet farm. So as you can see, the vineyards are already very far in the season, and it's mainly ryegrass. And now, with a small baler, that becomes part of your feed for later in the season. Ek dink Johan het dit gesê, Bertie, maybe both. In the end, it's about people. People are the most important thing on your farm, and how we manage them and what they do. And that quote comes from Jan Smuts, the bottom one, who's the father, I think can be called the father of holistic management. And it's so important to realize that we can't work in silos. Everything needs to be, or everything are linked, and we have to see those links, and we have to cherish them and strengthen them. So it's important to take the people with us. And in my case, I don't have my own farm, so you are my people. You are the people who allow me, and we make a plan, and we take this further, and which is a privilege to be able to do that. I just want to end off, but and maybe this is a bit of a controversial statement to say there's no rules, just principles. I mean, there are rules in a rugby game, but the stronger your principles are, the less rules you need to live by. So if we develop strong sets of principles regarding our management of our land and our management of our farms and the bigger ecology, then we don't need too many rules. So, and I think that's where WWF and Biodiversity Champion play such an important role. If you're principled about the environment And your vineyard is just a small patch of that environment, but the environment as a whole, then we will take care and we will cherish that and farm it just as seriously as we farm the rest of our farm. I've got a couple of books here. Shirley at the back there from WWF gave me a few. If those people are really interested in, there's great stories in it. This is the contents of the book. You will see Hartenberg is there, Johan Reinecke is there. There's a lot of well-known farms, but their stories and a lot of info are in this book. So I've got a couple of copies for those people who are really interested, and you can come and get it from me. That's my story. I'd just like to close with that quote from a friend of mine, and I think, I know it's true for me, and I think for most other people as well. We know a lot of things, but we don't change our behavior before something really make us do that. Thank you.